Thank you very much, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, Adeola Solomon Olamilekan, representing Ogun West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, let me start by congratulating the National Assembly as well as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for successfully presenting to the National Assembly the 2025 appropriation bill, which he christened as budget of restoration, and with emphasis on poverty reduction, security, and security. Mr. President, I want to strongly believe that this is deliberate because the President chose this name having considered a lot of indices on the state of affairs of the country before coming up with the tag budget of restoration. Mr. President, one major area of concern which I listened to all my colleagues who have contributed and who have said one or two things is in two major areas. One, on the issue of the exchange rates. And Senator Adam Oshiomhole raised it and was critical about it, that we should do everything to sustain that the exchange rate stand at 1,500 to $1 because of the purchasing power parity. And I must say this, I will further suggest that we should look for a way by which this exchange rate will go down further. Because all indications to ensure that this exchange rate goes below 1,500, this current administration is working seriously hard to ensure that comes to pass. First and foremost, the refinery coming back on board. We have the Port Harcourt refinery now working. Dangote just this morning, how true it is, that petroleum pump price has been further go down. And also the Kaduna refinery, they are working around the clock to also put it to work. And if all this, we have it in place, definitely the exchange rate will further go down. Because this rate that is budget, that comes with this budget is not the actual rate. This is the rate in which the government wants to work with. While the actual rate there, which is operated by the Bureau de Change operators, is quite different from this. So there is still an exchange rate difference of about 250. But what the government will work with in the budget is this $1,500. So what we should do through proper monitoring, effective oversighting, is to work closely with the Central Bank of Nigeria and all major stakeholders and players in the economic sector to see how we can further work with them to bring down this rate to as low as 1,400. If you look at the medium-term expenditure framework that was passed, what was contained in it was $1,400. That shows the expectation of the current administration is that dollars should operate at 1,400 to a dollar. Naira should operate. So what we should do is to work closely with these relevant stakeholders in the economic sector to see how we can further bring down the exchange rate that is being attached to this current document. Mr. President, having said that, I also want to mention that I'm concerned, and my concern is that the cost of running the government and the cost of providing the dividend of democracy in terms of development to the country, the disparity is too high. In this current budget, what we have is about 80% or 75% of the 49.7 is cost of servicing, recurrent expenditure, debt servicing, and everything. While the cost of providing development project and everything, as we speak, is about 9.8 trillion naira. So when you look at that disparity, that shows a lot still need to be done in this regard to ensure that we bring down cost of running the government to at least the barest minimum, so that the cost of providing infrastructure and other developmental things can go up to as much as at least 30 to 40%. And I know this current president, while serving as governor of Lagos State, it changed the trajectory, where we have 40% cost of running government and 55% cost of providing infrastructure and developmental projects across the state. So this is one area that we should also look at and work closely through proper oversight on the part of our committee chairman to ensure that areas which we can recommend to the government, which we can tag as costs that we can reduce to increase the cost of our capital expenditure, we should also do that and work closely with our agencies and ministry and parastatals, which will be oversighting. Mr. President, having said that, I also want to congratulate the government of the day, at least the growth rate as projected by IMF and what we currently have. There is a disparity of about 2.5% difference, which is a welcome development. That shows that the reform agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is working. And we can only look or pray for the best in the coming year. Again, another area of concern, which my colleague have also expressed, is the area of inflation. And as we have said, this current document before us has an inflation rate of about 15%. But actually, from the Bureau of Statistics, the inflation rate stood at about 36.4%. That's a differential of almost 18%. So, and I know all the government has put in place this year in trying to curb the inflationary rates to be able to achieve the 15%, we definitely work, which is looking for alternative means of addressing the issue of subsidy through the conversion of our cars to the CNG is there, and also trying to bring our refinery and all others to work so that putting pressure on the dollars can be reduced. All of this will assist to curb inflation, and we should, the projection of 15% that have been proposed by this current administration in the 2024-5 appropriation bill can be achieved. But having said that, that still is due to some other factor, which is one, continuous monitoring, continuous engagement of the executive, and also we pray that we don't see any unforeseen situation that can cause further increase in the inflationary rate as projected by this by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, we should also congratulate the administration. Long before now, I can vividly recollect that the production, oil production, was about less than 1.2 million barrels per day or so. So now we are projecting about 2.06 billion, and we're already at about 1.8 million barrels per day. That shows that a lot of things is working. The security index is improving. And with all of this, I strongly believe that though it's an ambitious budget, but it's still achievable. And that was alluded to yesterday by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So the budget is very ambitious, but as ambitious as it is, we can't still compare it with budget of some other countries of the world who are not as big as Nigeria in terms of natural resources or availability of resources. But we want to thank God that at least we are moving. We can only believe that by the end of the administration, by 2031, at the end of administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, having served 8 years, maybe Nigerian budget will be around 200 trillion or 300 trillion naira. So we are hoping that as we are moving progressively, we will continue to move in that direction so that at least Nigeria can take its pride of place among the community of states in the world. So once again, Mr. President, I have listened to all my colleagues, I've listened to all the observations, and during the consideration in terms of working with the committees and the final output of the budget, a lot of these observations that have been raised will be considered and will be looked into the integrity of it based on their merit, and that will form part of our report and before the eventual passage of the budget. Once again, Mr. President, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I so submit. Thank you.
That this bill be now read a second time. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate, you may proceed to read the bill for the second time. Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 49 trillion 740 billion 165,355,396 naira only, of which 4,435,761 million 358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 16 trillion 327 billion 142 million 689,549 naira only is for debt service. The sum of 14 trillion 123 billion 544 million 196,406 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 14 trillion 853 billion 717 million 110,517 naira only is for contribution to Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending 31st day of December 2025 and for related matters 2024. Second reading taken. This bill is now referred to the Committee on Appropriation to report back to the Senate in 4 weeks. Let me thank you for your resilience, your nationalistic disposition, your contributions to the general principles of the 2025 budgetary estimates, and your patriotism. And to say that, yes, indeed, we are still full because we started with a full chamber. And some of our colleagues have gone for other duties, other parliamentary engagements. Some are even traveling outside the country. But you can imagine we've had not less than 43 senators making contributions to these general principles of the debate today. On behalf of the leadership of the Senate, I want to thank you for your contributions to the Senate throughout the year, and to wish you a Merry Christmas and a very happy New Year in advance, and particularly for our Christian brethren. And I also want to say that God Almighty and Almighty Allah will definitely bless your new year. No tragedy will touch you or your families. You will go and come back in good health. In Almighty Allah. May God be with you and with your families, and may you come back to continue the service to your fatherland. On that note, and also the joint session of yesterday was a great success to Nigerians. Those who are in charge of ad hoc committees that must report to us as soon as we come back, please get your reports ready. Then those who are in charge of conference committees to ensure that we marry the positions of both chambers together, get your reports ready, so that once we come back in January, we can get cracking. If there is need to call you back, in line with legislative practice, while you are on holiday, we'll do so. So don't forget that like they call it in the army, I think reservists. You are on reserve. You can be called back anytime if there is need, so that we can convene in the national interest. The Senate wishes our colleagues, the Speaker and leadership in the House of Representatives, a very wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. We also wish Mr. President a very wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we wish all our families good health, joy of the season that surpasses all understanding. On that note, I thank you personally for your continued support, and I thank you for your prayers for the Deputy Senate President and all of us. So this Senate now stands. Every other questions should be in the office of the Senate leader. This Senate stands adjourned to the 14th day of January 2025. Happy New Year in advance.